How do I do the little where I can just touch?
To go wide.
To touch what?
There to go wide.
Don't touch me there.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Passionate DJ Podcast. I'm your host, David Michael, and I'm here with the whole crew, Tony, Tripp, and Mo. Fellas, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Well,
All right.
It's nice to be here in Passionate DJ Studios, and we're going to rewind the clock just a little bit to last year when we talked when we were talking about all the buzz around the Paul Oakenfold show that Tony and his company, Three Dimensional Entertainment, through what was the date? I should know offhand.
9/20.
No, it was
20. Yeah, it was 9.
What was the date? Holy
September
shit.
it was
22nd.
it was the end of September because it was a couple
Oh,
days before I left on
September
my
22nd.
world tour.
Yeah.
Yeah,
September
because
22nd.
my birthday was the day before. That's right. So, yeah, 22nd. So, in September, and we talked a lot about the show. You know, every year we kind of follow you around on one of these shows and talk a lot about it. And we were doing that a lot about Oakenfold, and we wanted to take a little bit of a break just because it was a little bit heavy on that for a while. And now that we've had a little bit of time to step away from that, kind of look back and do like a retrospective on that show, how it actually went, how everything played out. From your perspective, Tony, as the promoter and et cetera, guy putting together all the things, spinning all the plates, and from Tripp's perspective as a direct support, artist support, playing for Paul Oakenfold at Mask, and from your perspective as well,
Wearing my medium polo.
wearing your medium polo and working security. So we have all kinds of different perspectives and angles here, and then of course. I participated in small part. Passionate DJ provided the what would you call it? The practice hardware, or
the setup rig in the room.
yeah, the hotel rig for Paul to play on. So I got to kind of sneak in and set all that up, and so I shot a little bit of bonus footage while all that was going on. I think Mo shot a little bit as well. So later in this week, I'm going to post actually a little bit of bonus content to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/passionatedj. Covering just kind of a little bit of the behind-the-scenes stuff that was going on from our perspective on that. So how would you like to approach this, Tripp? Do we want to start talking about the music and what you did and didn't play? Because we did an after-party episode, a bonus show,
Right.
where we talked about what you might play.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know how much you actually stuck to the plan and whether or not you just threw that to the wind or how that actually played out. So maybe we can talk about that, but I don't know how far in you want to go to that conversation.
No, that's great.
Without giving it away.
No, that's a great place to start because back in some of our earlier episodes, episodes like Reading Your Crowd, stuff like that, there's a whole lot of insight to how we each approach our sets, and I stayed true to form. Like, I didn't get outside of my comfort zone when I didn't pre-plan a set, but then I also didn't come in completely winging it either. So basically what I did is I created 3 crates on my thumb drives. I guess we should rewind a little bit. Turns out, what people found out in the after-party episode before the actual show was that we found out that we weren't actually going to be using the Denon Prime gear.
Right.
So that honestly, I had mixed feelings about it.
Hashtag change your rider back.
I had mixed feelings about it because I did want to get my hands on it and actually play around with it and see what it was like. But at the same time, that's not the time for me to feel comfortable with
To try and learn how to use something
changing
new.
everything, changing everything around. So I was just like, so I had mixed feelings about it. I was more comfortable because it ended up being a Pioneer Nexus rig, so all industry standard stuff that I'm super comfortable with. So on my thumb drives, I created 3 crates. I created a main crate, which was like all of a lot of the tracks that you and I kind of went through, and then some. All stuff that was in that vein. So, kind of hard, but techie, more techno type of stuff, stuff that plays with your head a little bit.
Okay.
But also really drum heavy, or really bass heavy stuff that you're gonna feel in your gut when you're on a Function One rig in a place like Mask.
That's a good point. I guess we probably should kind of reiterate that for our audience who isn't familiar with Mask and three-dimensional and kind of how all that, even what we're talking about there.
Right,
because
right.
For us here in Dayton, Ohio, Mask is a big deal. I mean, it's a diamond in the rough, to say the least. I mean, it's just an amazing.
Those are the exact words that BT used.
That BT of all people used.
Right.
I mean, it's just, it leaves such an impression on everybody that you and Billy bring through that place. I mean, like people who travel worldwide and see all the biggest mega clubs,
and they say, "I'm going to Dayton, Ohio,"
yeah.
and then they get here and whoa, what the?
Whoa, like holy moly! And they tell their friends,
Right.
who are other people that we probably want to bring in there, and so it's cool to watch.
My favorite reaction so far was Dom from Stanton Warriors when you walked him back to the booth and he looked around. He was like, and Melissa, my wife, was there, and I was like, baby, did you see that? Did you see that?
So those of you watching on the YouTube audience, you'll see some of the photos we put up here on the screen. They don't show up very well on the camera, but I'll drop a few of them in there in post so you can see the high-res version, and you can get a look for it. It's really hard to get a good shot of Mask.
Yeah.
It's just a hard place to photograph. It's dark and very bright at the same time.
Right.
It's just a big, low-ceiling rectangle for as wide as it is.
Right.
It's hard to really capture what that place is like, but some of these photos, there's a few fisheye lens ones and a couple of really good shots in there.
Yeah, agreed.
Most photographers that I have that come in that place hate it because they can't shoot very well.
So inconsistent.
I don't want to say they hate it, but it's just a dark room and they don't know what they're coming into. But
yeah. Plus there's fog and cryo and everything else that comes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that once that place fills up and then cryo starts going off and the lights are going and all of that stuff. Yeah, almost all the photos that I've ever seen in that place, it's Mask. Like, it's got a very particular flavor or characteristic to everybody's. It doesn't matter the photographer. Like, it is the place. So you do the best you can with what you got.
Yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
No.
To cut you off, just for some context there.
Right. No, absolutely. So then I also created two other crates, two other folders on my thumb drive, and one was I called it Backup Trance Prog.
Okay.
So, knowing that I was going to be opening for Paul Oakenfold, what I wanted to do, as we talked about in that after party episode, was I wanted to be able to tee things off and yet still kind of tease what's to come, but still keep it in my vein. So keeping it in my style, but not, and being able to, dip my toe in the trance stuff, or even, hey, we can go in knee deep. But saving the big stuff for Paul. So I filled up a crate with stuff that kind of ran the gamut. Some of it was that more mellow kind of, okay, yeah, this will work, and it works for what I'm stockpiling it away for. But then I also threw some really big Anthem shit in there, right? Just in case people were gonna let me go there, but if I was gonna do it at all, it was either going to be the very last track to hand things off. But then, as I kept thinking about it, that's not how you want to do it. What I thought was maybe more like 3/4 of the way in, be able to hit that and then bring it back down to hand it off.
That late hill.
Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't really hit that point. I did hit a couple of tracks. One in particular that was definitely, it was full bore trance, but I hit it at that right spot where it was like, okay, yeah, that'll work. So
one thing that we kind of skipped over before we get more into the guts of the actual music.
Sure.
You were not booked as Tripp Turlington.
No.
Can we talk about what you were booked as and why?
Sure. So I was booked as Digital Psychosis, which is an old moniker of mine. It was actually the first moniker that I had that was because I tried to go by DJ Tripp when I very first started, and that's like house, booty house, stuff like that. But, I sucked then, and, it was like, whatever, So as I got better and, started taking things a little bit more seriously, getting more gigs and stuff like that. So then, okay, now I was trying to create a brand and an image and stuff like that. So Digital Psychosis was a name that I came up with, and it stuck, and people loved it, and I misspell it. I put a big capital K instead of a CH in Psychosis. There's a callback there if anybody gets that. But,
I was just going to ask that question, but I stayed away from it.
that was a long time ago. So anyway, but I did. I built. That's what I built the majority of my reputation as a DJ on, up until probably mid to late 2000s. It was probably around 2008, I think, is when I retired the name. But that's when I was also switching over to glitch hop and more broken beat stuff and drum and bass. So at that point, that's when I said, okay, well, I'm just going to go by my name, and build that brand that way. So luckily, there's some people who remember the Digital Psychosis name, and every now and then somebody will ask me to bring it out of retirement. So it had been a while, and so Tony asked, and I can't turn that down.
So Digital Psychosis is like all four to the floor stuff, correct?
Trance, prog, techno, tech house, all of that wrapped up into one.
Whereas you might argue Tripp Turlington does a lot more breakbeat,
Yeah.
drum and bass, glitch hop.
Right.
Any varied tempo. I mean,
Yep.
So okay.
And I say all that 4/4 stuff, because I was, except for like when trance was like the super popular thing, and you could play 6 of those tracks in a 1-hour set. But once that started to die off, and I started diversifying more, so then that's when I was finding ways of making my sets a lot more dynamic, and really like we've gotten into that before as far as the psychology of mixing and taking people on a journey. So I through like the mid 2000s as Digital Psychosis, that's what you would get out of me. It was a lot more eclectic. So you would get everything from tech house to some even like dirty electro and stuff like that, mixed in with some techno, and then ultimately what I would do for a little callback to the trance is end with something proggy or something trancy, to put the end cap on the mix. So
Okay.
But for this wasn't that much different from that. It was but that was my approach, was I've got a main crate of stuff that's that main idea that I want to kind of stick to or have the ability to go back to if things start to go awry or if I go way too far down one path or the other, and then have these other 2 crates that allow me to have, little branches depending on how people are reacting.
Okay. Tony, real quick, from your perspective, how did the show go off? Did you have any hiccups or struggles during the event itself?
No.
Any moments of note? Because it's, from my perspective, everything went off great, but that might just because you did a good job putting out fires. You know what I mean?
It went fairly smooth for the most part. Outside of the show, really, it was Parents' Weekend for UD.
Yeah.
And every hotel in the city and outside of the city was booked, so I had to put him, 15 minutes outside of downtown. But
I was going to say over by my house, right?
Yeah, but from the airport to the hotel was like a 40-minute drive because we had to take 70 all the way around into Beaver Creek. And it was interesting, but that was really the only, if you want to call anything a hiccup during the show, that was.
How's Paul? Is he easy to get along with?
Oh, yeah, he was awesome. He was, you could tell he was kind of irritated about the long drive to the hotel, and he wanted to be in the city because he wanted to know some of the city culture and stuff, and wanted to get a good restaurant downtown, but instead he ate at Red Robin. He had a Red Robin.
I don't care what anybody says. Blue Ribbon Burger.
Yeah.
Put it on a lettuce bun and get the crispy onion straws. I'm with it.
Hashtag sponsor us.
Right.
But as far as hiccups are concerned, no, the show went super smooth.
Good.
Yeah.
Sitting here talking to Tripp Turlington on the Passionate DJ podcast about his adventures warming up for the one and only, the legendary Mr. Paul Oakenfold,
Right.
and Tony DeSero's perspective from being the promoter and the guy behind the scenes pulling all the puppet strings and making sure that the show goes off without a hitch. And, of course, with Mr. Mo Dingo, running security, making sure nobody gets in the VIP that's not supposed to, and running all kinds of various logistics and so
Heavy
behind
lifting.
the scenes.
That's my
Heavy
specialty.
lifting.
Yeah.
Hashtag CrossFit.
So what I'm curious about is how far did you stray from your thoughts as far as like your approach to the music?
Sure. So I wouldn't say that I strayed far in terms of like the main idea. There were a couple of times where I did kind of try a couple of things, but it was like because I was feeling it. Like I don't know how well anybody can see these pictures from the camera, but when we post them, like you can tell like this crowd was feeling it.
Yeah.
So like.
That's why I asked, because a lot of what we talked about in the bonus show had to do with, if they're feeling it, then I'll do this. If the energy's up, I'll do this. And it seemed to me walking in there that all those things were happening.
Right.
So I wonder if some of the tracks that you were hesitant about actually got played and so on. So this will be interesting.
Yeah. So one of the ones that you and I covered was this one that I'm going to bring in just a little bit here. So this is called GOD. It stands for Gospel of Doubt, Part 2, featuring Casey Gerald. The track is by Pleasurecraft. And, this was like one of my top tracks of last year. I played this at every gig. Not that I played a bunch last year, but literally every single gig that I played, this was in it. But, like, as I came up and was just like, okay, getting a feel for the crowd, from the DJ before me, and I'm just kind of watching everybody, and, so people are already crowding around the DJ booth. People are already dancing. People are, you could just feel that vibe. People were already into it. Here, let me pull this in a little bit.
I have and I offer the gospel of doubt.
It's got that good rolling.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's
Everybody bobbing
like a
yeah.
damn locomotive,
I wish I would have been up there for this.
So the only way I can describe the feeling when you dropped this at the beginning, it was like an absolute oral assault. Like you came in there and you punched everybody right in the forehead, like right off the bat, dude.
Well, and
you got everyone's attention. Like
Right.
like I know, because so where I stand, I can see the entire crowd. And as you drop this track, I saw people start coming towards the DJ booth, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Made a statement.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
sure.
as soon as you went on, that's when I had to leave because I had the far drive to Beaver Creek to pick him up. That's why I couldn't.
Yeah, so like the whole point of me doing that though was because the DJ before me was playing great stuff, and had the crowd engaged. It was a great warm up, and but it was a totally different style of music. It was something intentionally purposed for something earlier, but it was really vibey, really like it felt good. So
What was it like energy level wise compared to this? Because this is coming at it pretty hard.
It was more like, I don't want to say uplifting, but like it was just good, groovy, feel good kind of, but energetic. So good and poppy, but like
Who did you take over from?
it was
Was it Kim?
Aaron, right?
Aaron Austin.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So-
Gotcha. That's right.
Yeah, so very housey kind of,
Yeah,
but
More light, more on the lighter side.
right. And but he was having such a blast, and I was just like,
Yeah.
feeling him and watching the crowd, and I was like, okay,
He's
so,
really good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so the whole thing there was like, as I had two choices. I could either try to play out on him and try to like like a smooth roller coaster, just take it and then take them from where he drops them off.
There was absolutely nothing smooth about
No, there
that.
was nothing.
And I don't say that in a negative
No,
way.
no,
But
because-
you accomplished your attention step.
Well, so what happened was, so he leaves me on a loop, on the CDJ, and then I bring this in, and so like we're playing with the filters and all that stuff to bring this out, and because this one starts with no kick drum, it's just that jump, right? So so I'm bringing that in, and then fade his stuff out, and let go of my loop, and
the song builds.
and then the kick drum on this, as soon as it hits, like whoever runs the lights.
Yeah, David. Yeah.
Yeah, he figured it out real quick. Like, oh, we got to do something. So like, brings the dark, brings the lights down to a darker level, and then you're right. Like, it was just as soon as that thing hits, and then I'm feeling it, they're feeling it, and so like I'm. As a matter of fact, funny story. Don't tell Luke this, but what's right above? Is that a laser?
There's 3 of them above you.
Yeah. So like. At first, like, I was getting so into it, and then I started to go do a fist pump, and I punched one of the damn lasers. I was like, shit. Okay, calm down.
Punching lasers, the new Digital Psychosis mixtape.
Right. So, but I mean, so like a track like this, I mean, that's exactly what it's designed to do. When I play it, that's.
How awesome is that feeling though? Like when that bass line hits and that punch comes and all those people just feel it, and they're just like they just go off.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's.
I mean, that's what we live for.
That's the closest thing that I experienced to like festival sound, like indoors. You know what I mean? Just because that room is set up just for that.
Right. So there was a couple of them that I did not play. One of them that you and I talked about was I Am One by Pig and Dan.
Yes.
That was the one that has like the acid, the 1950s housewife on acid sample in it.
Right.
Yeah, like, and it's a great track, but I felt like it was too mellow. Because if I'm going to come out that hard, I need to keep that energy level going.
Yeah.
If I'm going to bring it down, I need to wait a little bit. I'm here to make a statement.
Yeah.
Like, let's bring it. We'll wait to bring it down a little bit when I'm ready to transition to something else. But so I wanted to keep hitting them and going hard. Another one that I did not play was that Druce Night Drive. It was kind of well, I guess I can play it, even though I did not play it.
So this is one that you thought you might play, and then in the moment you decided for some reason it was not right?
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. This one is so like this was one that I felt was going to be right up that alley, where it would be a perfect track to drop off and say, okay, and
hand it to
hand
Paul.
Yeah, because it's Trancy, it's proggy, it's got that, it's got the arpeggiators, it's got a little bit of a tease of like some pads and maybe
drama.
Yeah, exactly. And that vocal sample is amazing. But I never got to a point where I felt like I could slip it in there. I tried. There were like 3 different times where I was like, I had it in the player, and I'm like trying to make it work with these tracks, and it's like, nah, it's just I'm if I'm gonna force it, like then I'm gonna blow the mix, and like at that point, do people care? They're having a good time, maybe not, but I will, and. I don't know how long Paul Oakenfold was standing behind me. I just know when Tony came and tapped me on the shoulder to tell me that Paul was digging my shit. And I'm like, and I turn around, he's here?
Yeah, so,
Whoa.
So, whenever Tony goes to go get him, he texts me and lets me know what the ETA is. Right. I clear out this particular hallway and making sure, nobody's going to mess with them. Tony brings Paul up. Paul's like just chilling behind you, and he was there for probably, I'd say, a good 10 minutes or so.
Nice.
Yeah, we walked in about I want to say 10 to 15 minutes before. So
before Tony even told you anything, like, and you were like totally in your zone.
Oh,
and you were like getting it, and Paul's back there going. He had a big smile on his face, and he was just smiling. He was looking at the crowd, and he was looking back at the VIP area, and he was like,
the cool thing is when you bring those guys in. They obviously know in the big cities that the openers know what they're doing, but they come to these smaller cities and they're like, oh God, what am I going to walk into?
Right,
and they're like Dayton, Ohio, what am I walking into? And when they walk into obviously an amazing ass club, but the direct support doing
his
the direct
job,
support
yeah.
job and
Yeah,
keeping
everybody
it,
who touched that
you
show
know.
obviously gave a shit.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was something that we kind of touched on in the when we talked about this before on After Party. Is like I think that's why you weren't here to be able to say this, so I kind of spoke on your behalf. So forgive me if I misspoke, but I said that's why Tony trusts you with this job
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
opening up for him, is because you put so much care and attention and thought and all the things that we talk about in that episode and this episode that you drive yourself crazy over and worry about and think about, and like because you care so much about that, that's why you're put in that position there.
I have a show tomorrow, and I'm breaking out like a 12-year-old kid right now. Like, you see that? You know what I mean? Because I'm worried about everything that's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
Not that it's going to be bad. It's just I just worry, and I put that much thought and detail into the event itself.
You need to know that the person that is setting up the artist that you potentially would want to work with again isn't going to do something stupid when they get up to the decks, and Digital Psychosis is not the one that's going to do some shit like that, right?
So-
now, I'm sorry. If you're going to
no.
go somewhere in particular, I was going to ask you, there was a particular, I think, Dubfire track that you were going to play that you talked about going from that kind of more techie, bangy stuff into sliding it more into a proggy direction. I'm wondering if you actually did.
Yeah, so I don't know if you were there or not. There were 2 tracks that I specifically played because I knew you were going to catch them. So one was the Dubfire Rib Cage, but I played a remix of it. So
That's not the Miss Kitten, is it? No.
Rib Cage, Dents and Pica remix. So. And you know what was crazy about this one is that at this stage of my set, when this was about halfway through, and I was intentionally trying to, come down from all the hard stuff. I think if it wasn't the track before this, maybe a couple of tracks before this, I was playing like Green Velvet's Automate, you know what I mean? Which is like, I mean, you're just you're slaying these people. I mean, and they're eating it all up. But then I was like, no, if I'm gonna turn the bus at some point, I want to do it about halfway now, because I've hit them so hard. Because that's an easy hole to get sucked down into. Is when you are banging them. And they are taking it, and it's so easy to just keep going for the next hard thing, and just keep nailing them with it. And they may enjoy that through the whole thing, but you as an artist, or maybe even a little egotistical puppeteer kind of thing, you know what I mean? Like, you want to see how you can manipulate this crowd to show them something different, but you got to do it within an hour.
It's partly that, but it's also the restraint of an experienced DJ.
Sure.
I mean, this isn't your first rodeo, and you know that you can't just, if you go 10 for the whole time, then it's all 10. It's all 1.
Sure.
Just like B-Funk, like B-Funk said when he was here, he said there is no 11.
Right.
So if you hit him at a 10 all night, eventually it becomes a 7.
Right. So what I wanted to do at that point was, okay, but I didn't want to wait too late to do this. You know what I mean? Because if you wait too late, you're going 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, and then 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden you do play one track and then another track and then another track to
jabbing on the brakes at the last second.
Right.
Yeah.
That's too jarring. So I wanted to present something that was a little bit more well-rounded, a little bit more fluid, a little bit more intentional. So yeah, about halfway through, maybe a little more than halfway, but then I dropped this. And I have to tell you, this went over so much better than I ever thought it would.
Awesome.
Like, because, Dubfire is huge, right? But, like, you ask a lot of people who may be hip to electronic music, but maybe a lot of people who are not DJs or producers may not know who Dubfire is,
Right.
And I don't know how popular this track actually got, but even this is a remix of one of his tracks. It's not actually his track, or it is his track, but it's a remix of it. So, like, I was just like, I'm just hitting the floor with this thing, and you can hear there's nothing like super, it's got a great, low end to it, but
it's
more
about the timing of it.
Right. Well, that, and it's like...
It's almost like a recovery track. I mean, for lack of a better term.
Well, in the context that he used it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's crazy because it's like, to me, this is more of like one of those heady tracks, you know,
Yeah.
and you get this ping pong delay thing going on, and you know, it's such a simple design, but you know, just masterfully put together, and you know, so then you get this kind of a breakdown, and people were digging it, man, and then as soon as it comes back in and Cryo starts blasting, I'm like,
And I was going to say, to be fair, like this song sounds kind of minimalistic to us right now in the context,
Right,
but when
right.
it's being
In the middle of
played
that show.
in
Right.
that show
Sure.
with
That
a couple
sound
hundred
system.
people with that sound system,
Right.
with the lights, that, you know, the $1 million of lights that are in there,
yeah,
it sounds and feels and is just a different experience in that.
No
so,
doubt.
I mean, that's part of the DJ's job too, is translating not only what is time appropriate, but what's like how much does the context change just by the environment that we're in.
right,
you
right,
know?
agreed. I mean, how many times have you been in a club, somebody drops this thing, and you're into it, it's a banger, you're feeling it, and then you go home, you download it from Beatport, and you're like,
This is
"Oh,
whack."
sucks."
This,
Yeah.
this is the one. Yeah.
Like, no, there must be a remix.
Right,
It can't be
right.
the same song.
Yeah, exactly. I've done that a bunch of times. The other place, so there were two things that I did that I wanted to call out to, because this one was one that we pulled out of After Party, and I could not resist. I couldn't do it. And when I dropped this one, the cool part was that I had a whole group. Maybe there was like 10 or 15 of my like oldest old school friends. Like we've talked about this on like reading your crowd and building your fan base and stuff like that. But you know, so some of these are people that I started raving with in the late 90s, who have since dropped off, you know, years ago. They were like, you know, they had one situation or another and they just stopped going. But every now and then, some of them will pepper in or come in, and you know, they'll see me on a lineup and they'll pop in, you know, okay, cool, then they head home because, you know, we're all old and have jobs and kids and stuff, right? So, but for this one in particular, because it was Paul Oakenfold, there was like a group of like 10, maybe 15, and they were all like right there like, to the left. And so like when I played this track, it was partially because it was a track that we had already talked about, and I wanted to drop it because it was the right remix of this track that I felt it would work. But then also when I started seeing those faces out there in the crowd, and then I was all like, yeah, this one's for y'all. Like, I don't care who else in this room enjoys it, but I know that this group of people over here, this was like one of our anthems every weekend when we would go clubbing. So, this one is 3 Drives on a Vinyl, Grease 2000, but it's the Think remix, THNK extended remix. So
Right. So when we talked about this before the show,
yeah,
this was one you were really hung up on. Was,
Yeah.
do I play 3 drives? Do I not play 3 drives? I'm worried that it's going to be too much
Yeah.
for that time slot, and it'll be too showboaty or whatever.
Right.
But I don't. Is this a different remix than we talked about on?
no, this was the same remix.
This is the one. Okay.
But
so you felt that the energy was appropriate. That
Yeah.
fuck it, we're doing it.
yeah, especially because this particular remix, I mean, as you can hear, it starts off and it's, you know, real low key. It waits a while before it actually blares out into that, you know, crazy signature arpeggiator, right? And then when it ends, you know, it has this huge buildup, and then all of a sudden just drops off, you know, and then goes back to that
Yeah.
minimal thing. So I knew that yes, it's going to be crazy. People are going to dig it. It's going to make that statement of,
I can already hear it.
yeah,
Yeah.
trance, right?
No,
But,
just 3 drives.
Yeah, right.
We get a good clip of the lead playing in this version, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Let's make sure we let the audience hear that.
Right.
It's such a
'cause
classic.
it's iconic.
Yeah.
I don't care what generation raver you are, you've probably heard this.
Yeah.
But no, it was, and so it was great. Like, that was probably one of the biggest smiles that I had that night, is once people started feeling that chord progression. A couple of my friends like had picked up on it. Like, is that it? Yeah.
Well, this version teases it with that lead filters in for a second, then goes away, and then the bass line, like it's doing right now, it starts coming in slowly. So if you're paying attention, or if you just really know that song,
Right.
then the heads are gonna, you're gonna lock eyes, and you're gonna have that moment. And there,
Yeah.
I mean, there are few cooler moments as a DJ, I think, than when you have something like that where you tease something and somebody recognizes it.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh,
Especially
you know?
when it's like your crew from back in the day. Too.
Yeah.
Right, because I mean,
There's
here
memories
we are.
associated with
Exactly. Like at 40 years old, I fully understand that I am no spring chicken, and like we don't party like we did when I was, a late teenager and through my 20s and stuff. So
Well, we can't. We just have to nap.
we have to nap a lot.
Yeah.
But that's the crazy part is that like for that 3 minutes that you're in this thing, and then you lock eyes with somebody that you've literally known for over 20 years, and that's it takes you both back to that. That chills.
I do remember that part dropping, and I was like, oh, this reminds me of being 27.
So the good part about this remix is, I mean, it takes it up a notch. Like, they're in it. So.
And to the credit of the light guy David that I had introduced you to, he's a younger guy. So for him to have the intelligence to start playing with the lights the way he did,
right,
without knowing anything that you were about to do. I mean, Tony gave him some cues about like what palettes to use and what not to use and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
that's the cool thing about a lot of these three-dimensional. Sorry to cut you off,
No.
but a lot of these three-dimensional shows is that you've gotten it worked out to where you work so well with the venue and the lighting person and all the stuff that it looks like even when you have a touring artist and they come in and they play on the house setup, it looks like a more produced show in that I mean, you don't have like the DVD playing in the background with the synchronized visuals, but you have some kind of similar version of that that's more than just sound reactive scanners bouncing off. They actually like do things that make sense in the context of the night, and you guys put a lot of care into that. Hey, don't have this color and this stuff running until 11:30, and it's just, it makes for this whole cohesive experience that probably subtly really adds to the whole experience for people, even though they don't really realize how much thought was put into
It's the same way that we would describe an opener set. Like Tripp did it right because he took it from here and he climbed it up. We do the same thing with the lights, the same thing with the sound, turning the master volume up and things like that. You don't want to give it to them all at once.
All right.
Yeah.
Ease them into it, because you give them 100%, they get worn out real quick.
So the last track I was going to bring in was one that I specifically played for you.
Yes.
And the funny part is that at this point, you and Paul were standing behind me, had no idea. I figured you were somewhere out there, so I figured if I play it, he'll hear it, he'll know it was for him. And
I am very rarely out there.
Well,
And,
you know what I mean, somewhere. Yeah.
and I will testify because on his birthday, I made him leave.
Tony,
because,
stop!
Yeah, he needed to get out and experience some of the music, some of his,
Some of Sasha.
benefit from his hard work.
Right.
Well, it's your birthday too.
Yeah. So this one, we won't play the whole thing because it's actually 12 minutes long.
So it's a shorter.
Yeah, it's a shorter trans track. But I did not play the full thing. I played an edit that I had cut up the night of, actually. But the reason I wanted to bring this one up in particular is because, one, it is a classic. I mean, this was like, what, early 2000s?
This is like 04.
Yeah. So maybe mid 2000s. Yeah, but it's John Creamer and Stephen K. But it's the Satoshi Tome remix of Love and Traffic. And I mean, just if you were raving in that period of time, like that vocal. It doesn't matter whose remix it is, but as soon as that chick comes on there and starts singing Love and Traffic, like that was a showstopper. Like people just
You got out of line from the bar and everything.
Like
yeah.
I mean, it was one of those. So I'm gonna go forward a little bit.
Got that hiding back here on the shelf somewhere.
Yeah, so I actually tried to find a digital copy, and you can't. I mean, there is no digital copy to download anywhere, so I had to rip it from vinyl.
Really?
So you ripped your own vinyl?
I
and
ripped
played
my
it?
own
Nice.
vinyl to play digitally. So here you go. Yeah. Pornographic. So I went a little out of sequence here. So this was around that same time when I was after I played Dubfire track and that Ribcage, because I was trying to take it to a darker place, bring it down from that hard banging in your face techno, bring it to this like proggy kind of level, gives me plenty of places to go.
Which is a great time to drop in a vocal like this, by the way,
Right.
if you haven't been playing vocals this whole time,
Right.
other than those little like blips and backgroundy things.
Yep.
But like something with a verse.
Yeah.
Like it makes such a statement if you like bring everything down and do this.
Yeah, exactly. And this remix could have very easily stayed very dubby and just kept going with the hook. But then, this Kellyanne chick that did the vocals here, this is kind of sassy. So like halfway through my set, and then all of a sudden you drop this vocal, it's got people's attention, and it's got that real chunky thing. So, I mean, people just vibed on it, and you could just tell people were getting bass face without like any neuro anywhere, like in sight, So it was just like, this was just one of those tracks that I felt like, me and Tony talked about it, and I said, do you think it would? And he was like, you better. Okay, cool. So
Exactly the same scenario that I had when I played the Pearl Jam remix. When I played the Pearl Jam remix that I talked about, opening for Benny Benassi.
Right.
Like I was going through my head, should I play this or should I not? And it was Chad Slimker that was like, yeah, you better play it. So it was just the same exact scenario when you were talking to me about it. Like, yeah.
Well, and so the craziest part, and the other reason I wanted to bring this track up specifically is because I believe this is right when I realized that Paul was behind me.
Oh, nice.
Because Tony comes up and he's all like, hey, no pressure, but Paul's right behind you, or something along those lines. I was like, and I turn around and the look on Paul's face while this track is on, like, he knows this song.
Yeah.
Like, he knows the damn people who wrote it.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it was like, I got a nod or at least some, acknowledgement and like a smirk and a, yep, and okay, cool. So then I turn around. Now my butthole's all puckered up, right? Like, no pressure. But, and I just, so knowing that and, reading that crowd to take it to that place of 3 drives. But then I did end up pulling back and, went with something that was still kind of progressive housey, but not like housey, if that makes any sense. But, pulled things back enough to where, okay, here you go, That way I wasn't leaving him with something that was just balls to the wall.
Well, back in those days, this song was progressive house.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that was the hard part back then because progressive house like changed, faces so many times in that time period. So like you could say progressive house and like you could like be pulling up an SM tracks, from like 1999 or something, and that's completely different from anything bedrock, but it was still.
I think Beatport for a while went. Their genres were not. I think they were a little off.
Yeah.
There was a lot of complaint about that for a good couple of years.
Yeah. You definitely had to do some digging.
They seemed to got a little bit more together.
But so by the time it was all said and done, and I turn around and it was amazing. Like Paul gave me kudos, like handshake, and then
I
hug,
wanted to talk about that part.
Yeah, because like that was like amazing because like here he is, he's telling me that I did a great job, great stuff. He was digging it, and handshake and a hug. Which, but then the funny part is, so then like I turn around, after I've effectively handed everything off, and then he gets out like antibacterial wipes and stuff like that. And I mean, like, and I mean, for good reason. If he's a world traveling DJ, the last thing he wants to get sick.
Well, he was actually he had a serious cold when he was there.
Oh, okay. So I just assumed, hey, the man travels a lot. He, I'm sure that there's not really, a DJ's, medical plan out there. And if you're depending on these gigs for your income, like you want to minimize.
Antibacterial wipes are cheap health insurance.
Right.
What album was it that you had him sign?
Oh yeah, that's I totally forgot about that too. We'll come back to the other thing, but after he was done playing, so I've had a white label of U2's "Beautiful Day" that he remixed on Perfecto Records, but I had the white label test pressing before. It
got
like
dropped.
months before it hit the record stores. So and I had scribbled on one side, Okie versus U2, "Beautiful Day," and so I handed it over to him and I said, hey, I literally played the shit out of this. I've had this record 20 years or whatever it was, and I said, will you write over my stupid handwriting? And he was he signed his name, put a little smiley face in the O, and
nice.
Yeah, it was that was pretty cool. But yeah, no, I just that was amazing, because that was one of the more fulfilling gigs of my DJ career, because I've gotten plenty of dap from other headliners that I've opened up for and stuff, and done and have done direct support, but he really genuinely seemed into it and wanted to convey gratitude or respect or whatever it was. Super cool dude.
No, and watching from the sidelines, where I always at, he was digging what you were throwing down, legit. And I'm not saying this just because we're recording anything, but he was legitimately getting down. There was a couple times he was jumping up and fist pumping and stuff.
Nice.
I was like, yeah.
Yeah. When he came in with his first, when you were handing it off to him.
Yeah.
And he gave you a hug, just to capture that moment and to have that
right
on that little video clip.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. So, and the greatest
and you could just
part,
tell, you could just tell, you yourself, how happy and how fulfilling that moment was.
Yeah.
And to be honest, he didn't really hug everybody. He gave everybody else one of these,
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I mean, and David, I wanted to be there. I wanted to stay there for when Paul started. And I think he got his first track out. And then I was just I was too in my own head, just bursting with vibration. I was I got to get out of here for just a second. I need to get, some fresh air. So ironically, I went to the smoking area.
Tripp, talk to me now.
Right, so here comes
For fresh air?
Yeah.
Right.
What?
So David came out with me and bust out his phone, and he's all like, "Hey, let's get the immediate reaction." And I'm all like, I like to play.
I don't even know if they can hear us right now, but holy shit, man. That was...
Oh, yeah.
You played all of the bangers. You played the Love and Traffic. He said, I don't know, how do you even process that?
Right.
I think it was kind of the feeling you were having. I was like, I know that feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, again, thank you.
No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, there it is, the hug.
Yep.
There it is.
It's the bro hug right there.
Yeah.
Right?
And even people, you can tell in that image that you guys will see once Dave uploads it, they're even taking
oh yeah,
a
these
moment.
guys, all of these people right here are all those friends that I was telling you about. Especially this guy right there. That guy is as close to me as a brother, and he never comes out for anything anymore. He's got 4 kids, ranging from adult 18, 19 years old down to 10. So he's a busy guy.
Yeah.
So for him to put his to make time in his life to come out, and party with us as late as he did. I love that dude to death. But yeah.
Awesome.
You're tuned into the Passionate DJ podcast. We're talking to Tripp Turlington, also known as Digital Psychosis, about his warm-up gig back in September, opening for the legendary Paul Oakenfold. Of course, Tony's company, 3-Dimensional Entertainment, was responsible for putting on this show. And Mo Dingo, you ran some security type services during this night, as you've done before. So how does that night work for you?
So for me, Tony, he doesn't even ask me anymore. He's just hey, I'm doing this show. So then I already know, okay, I need to go get my medium polo dry cleaned. get my good 3DM hat out and my black 511 tactical pants.
You're basically advertising all of the brands that you work with all at once.
Pretty much. But mainly my goal for those nights is just to make sure that those people in the VIP area are having the experience that they've paid Tony good money for, especially when you have like a global name like Paul Oakenfold coming in. Those people are paying a premium, and they deserve to have that premium experience.
At these busier events, do you find it difficult to keep people kind of in line who are getting a little rowdy back there, or are most people pretty respectful?
No, the people that Tony brings in, they're reasonable human beings.
Has it differed with your experience on the road?
Yes, very much so. When I work for Tony on the road doing whatever he needs me to do, just working backstage, those situations get a little bit ridiculous a little bit quicker. But I would argue that it's more from the artist perspective versus like groupies or whatever, because there's different layers of security.
Sure.
Once you get back behind the stage, so by the time they get up to the stage, they've already been vetted a couple times as far as like people with access badges or whatever, like fan VIP experience type things. But it tends to be the posse or entourage, if you want to call it, where I've experienced more challenges versus a 3DM night at Mask.
Do you ever have to, like, you have to be that guy that's like, people come up to you and be like, oh no, I know Tony, or like Paul's
everybody
my
knows
friend.
Tony,
yeah, you're like, yeah, so do I. What's
Only
your
on
point?
show
Right?
nights.
Yeah.
Right. So like, do you is that a struggle to have to do that, or do you just kind of get used to? Do you just like Robotic Mo comes on and you know?
I kind of have to put myself in the position of the people that are sitting in that area. They've paid for a specific experience, and aside from being above average size individual, Tony's paying me to keep that filter going there, and I feel it's my responsibility that he's given me to make sure that those people have that experience, because there's been situations where, like, a bro will come through and another bro, and then one bro tries to bring another bro through, and I'm like, no, hold on, dude.
Bro,
stop.
bro.
Yeah,
Bro.
yeah.
I mean,
You can bro, but not bro.
at the end of the day, if Mo wasn't there and anybody could just come back there, it would devalue what they spent for that experience.
Right.
Because you're keeping people from getting access to like bottle service areas.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. It's probably important to like clarify what kind of area we're talking about. So at Mask, we've got the DJ booth, and then right behind that, there's a wall that separates this VIP area from the booth.
It's roughly about 3.5 feet high. Don't ask me why I know how high exactly that wall is.
Right. But yeah, so there's one open like half moon kind of couch area, and then there's two side private VIP areas.
Yeah.
And I mean, so to your point, Tony, like people pay a lot of money for that, to get bottle service, to have that exclusivity, and you can argue
to not be in that crowd.
Yeah, you can argue the validity or the poshness or whatever your beef is with bottle service and all that stuff, but. Because some people do take issue with that, but at the same time, that's the type of show that this is. That's the experience people are paying for, and so to your point, like we got to have that filter to keep the riffraff from ruining it for people who have paid good money for
There's
it.
a lot of times where they're two different scenarios. Bottle service at some clubs, those people that pay that money determine what the DJ is going to push out to the crowd. This is not that. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, they're still paying a good amount of money for this.
Right.
So the people that do have issues with the bottle service, I can understand at some spots. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because they're the ones that are spending the money, and they're the ones that are catered to more than the actual DJ that's playing. You know, hence some of the DJs getting kicked out of Vegas,
playing.
Yeah.
That's what I was
mean?
going to say. If the bottle service dictates what the DJ plays, well then what's the difference between having a DJ and just an expensive jukebox? So no, I can, and that's a totally different topic for another day. Maybe we can make a whole episode out of that. But for what we're talking about, the people that tend to buy those tables, I've met several of them, and they all trust you and 3 Dimensional and the DJs that are put on that lineup to give them the experience that they trust you for. So I not once have I ever played a 3DM show and had somebody from the bottle service or the VIP tables come up and say, "Hey, can you play Sandstorm?"
The good old cell phone.
Right.
I tried to do it to the camera while he was saying it.
right.
And it's been kind of cool because over the time that Tony's allowed me to work these events, because you have a lot of repeat customers in that VIP booth, so it was actually cool to see some people I haven't seen since the first time I worked for you in that capacity, and them remembering me, and just like, hey, how's it going, man? Blah blah. I see you on Facebook and all. Hey, cool.
Right.
It's like the fact that because one guy, he came from Florida.
Todd?
Yeah, I didn't want to.
Well,
I could say his name. Yeah,
he lived in Florida. He lives here now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and he came up. He's like, "Mo, what's going on?" I was like, "Oh, hey, cool. That's super cool." But again, I've had people come up to me, and he's been standing there next to me, like when these girls come up and they try and lower their shirts or whatever, and I'm like, "That's not working. This is."
But let me get my iPhone real quick.
But just in case.
Okay, now go away.
Yeah. And then there's been even I think it was when Sasha came in. Oh no, it was Nicole Madaber, and there were people like, hey, I need to get back there. Well, let me see your wristband. No, you can't get back there. Well, I need to get back there. Dude, you don't have the right wristband. I can't do. Well, I need to buy one. They're not for sale. We're already. Well, here, and he pulled out like a wad of cash. He's like, well, how much does it take to get back there? I'm like,
Next time that happens, let me know.
Hold on.
I'll give you your juice.
and I could have really easily it was only one guy, and I could have really easily taken whatever amount of cash he was offering me. But that's not how I roll.
Right.
With the life that I've led, before I retired for the military, my personal brand and integrity means something to me.
Sure. Mighty Modingo cannot be bribed.
I mean, they say everybody has they say everybody has a price, but
just haven't found it yet.
But in that particular instance, but for me, for me to take a couple $100 from a guy and then Tony come up to me like, Mo, what the who's this guy? Why is he back here? And then,
but here's $100, Tony.
But here's
I love you.
Yeah, but here's your 20%. Yeah, what is that now? Now does Tony continue to trust me?
Right.
As this whole 3DM project evolves, and we're doing bigger things, he's going to remember that.
Right.
And if nothing else, I'll remember it. And so those kind of incidents have been irritating. The fact that someone would just think they can throw money at you and, achieve a certain accomplishment. But I was like, no, that's not how this works.
Tripp, there are two more tracks I wanted to ask you about.
Okay.
We talked about playing a version of Born Slippy. But you had some hesitance about playing it.
Yeah.
Because of the hook, the loop.
Yeah.
You know the part.
Yeah. I don't think I don't remember playing it at that gig.
I don't think you did.
No, I did play it at a recent gig. Nah, I didn't play it that night. I played it at another one, closer to New Year's Eve. And yeah, I mean, so for those of you that don't subscribe to After Party, what he's talking about is
first of all, why haven't you subscribed to After Party?
Right.
But go ahead.
But there's a remix of Underworld's Born Slippy, which is another one of those iconic classic rave tracks that it was on the
Trainspotting.
the soundtrack for Trainspotting. And for whatever reason, ravers, latched onto that, and I mean that was an anthem for a while. And if you listen to the whole song and you read the lyrics and you know what the song is about, it has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm about to say. That being said, so that particular remix, the remixer producer decided to grab one section of the vocal and it says white thing, mega white thing, and so but it keeps looping that over and over and over, for throughout most of the track and then when it breaks down, it goes into Born Slippy, and it's the whole track. So then those of us that are in the know that track. As soon as you hear that loop, then you're in it, it. It doesn't even faze you. But in this super hyper PC culture that we live in, and I'm not trying to take anything into any political realm. All I'm saying is that I was trying to be mindful enough when I played that, when I do play that, like I gotta know the crowd. Like, are they old enough to know that track, or whatever? Because if not, if somebody who is maybe slightly intoxicated, or one of those people that hears those types of, might hear something and take it out of context, then all of a sudden I'm the racist white guy DJ that's,
Because for clarity, it sounds a whole lot like they're just looping the N-word in that.
Right.
Which I don't think you actually said.
No.
So
no.
it sounds like that's like it becomes a chant.
Right.
It's just not the kind of thing you want to project or the attention you want to.
It's funny because I've never heard that, but now that you mention that, I can imagine, I can see someone hearing that.
Right. So
because I've dropped that track.
I love that
before.
track. Yeah,
it's a banger.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you grab specific loops of something, like, and I don't know the remixers personally or anything like that, but I just felt like that was a really interesting section of the vocal to repeat over and over and over again. Especially when you're dealing with things like techno and trance and stuff like that, because once you start hearing something and it starts blending, all these different sounds start blending together, well, then you guys know you put enough syncopated and arpeggiated things and enough layers together, and then you'll start hearing things that may not necessarily actually be there, but it's the culmination of all those things together. And then it's like, oh wow, that's trippy.
And that goes on for like a good 32, right?
64
yeah.
It just keeps going and going. So like the last thing I wanted was for somebody to hear N-word, mega white thing, and all. I'm nope. So especially in a club like Mask, which is very LGBTQ friendly, and I consider myself, I may not be a perfect ally, but I am an ally, and so I don't ever want to put something out there that would bring some negative light to me. Yeah. So I'm very selective when I play that remix. So thankfully it's a newer remix, and it'll probably phase itself out fairly soon. But
and then one track that you talked about, you said it's a heavier one, so if they're ready, I'm going to play Madagascar. Art of Trance.
Nope.
It's too much.
That was way too much.
Way too much.
Yeah.
Okay.
They didn't earn it.
No. It wasn't that they didn't earn it. It goes back to, because the remix, it's a tribute remix, so like it's like super clean production, like I mean, everything about it. So it's the Art of Trance, Madagascar, but it's this like super huge like remix, and so that was like I said, towards the beginning of the episode, like I was like thinking, there's a couple of ways I can go about it, depending on how the crowd goes. I could leave him with a banger, and that would have probably been it, but I thought better of it, so I kept that one tucked. I did play that one the night before New Year's Eve, and people ate that shit up.
Nice.
That's always a good feeling.
Right.
We're sort of recording and publishing this out of order, but as we record this, we'll be going to Lost Kings tomorrow at Mask. I wish we had a little more lead time to advertise it for you, but that's going to be a pretty awesome show. The numbers are doing what they're supposed to, it sounds like, on the pre-sales.
Above and beyond.
So, I can't wait to see what is in store for that, and I can't wait to see what Crystal Grid does with
they have a
set.
whole new set planned for tomorrow.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's our first. It's a 3Dimensional's first dip into the EDM, if you will, world. More mainstream, poppier electronic music.
Okay.
Very cool.
Well, best of luck, man.
Thank you.
I'm sure by the time everybody hears it, it will have been a successful show. But anything else we want to talk about before we wrap this one up? Anything else you want to share about the your experience there, Tripp?
No, just whenever you get those opportunities, don't take them for granted. Live in that moment, because I mean, that was an amazing set. I tried my best to be in the moment the whole time and really take that in, because I don't know if or when something like that will ever happen again. I'm sure I'll play for, great crowds again, but, having all of those elements line up, and being circled around somebody like Paul Oakenfold, like that was one of those ones where I really took all of that in. So
Do you still have the video of when Tony offered him the gig?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys sent that to me.
Yeah. we should maybe link that in. That was a pretty amazing
I
moment.
think that was during Holiday Record Exchange or something,
No,
wasn't it?
No, it was before that.
No,
Because Crystal Grid was there that
Yeah,
night.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
at your place.
Oh,
Yeah, it was at
that's
my
what
place,
it
yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I mean that just parting thoughts there. Just I mean, you know, we love music, we love what we do, so you know, don't ever take any gig for granted. I mean, but you know, those bigger ones, you know, make sure you do everything you can to remember them and hold on to them, because that's yeah.
Thoughtful words from Tripp Turlington, also known as Digital Psychosis. Well done, my friend. This is Tony DeCero. This is Mo Dingo. I'm David Michael. Check out our merch at passionatedj.com/merch. Check out the YouTube versions of all the stuff that we're talking about. Like I said, we're going to post some bonus clips later in the week. Check that out, youtube.com/passionatedj. But for now, this has been the Passionate DJ podcast. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Later.
Peace.
Easy.
Keep on spinning.
Fire Festival 2.0 coming up.
Oh my God, I forgot all about that.
Give me some.
What do you want?
Keep
Give
talking.
me something to dance
You want
to.
the tip? Or you want the whole thing?